The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
And welcome back to The Hash. Okay, let's go back over to Do Kwon Watch. According to documents released on Friday, Do Kwon in his civil suit is alleging that the SEC does not have jurisdiction over him and his case, saying that UST, the stablecoin that collapsed in May of 2022, is actually not a security, and so the SEC does not have the ability to interject into the whole conversation. He is seeking it, and the council is seeking that the entire case be dismissed. Zach, I want to throw this one over to you. We haven't had a Do Kwon update in a little bit since he was arrested in Montenegro for falsified passports.
This is a good fight to fight, but Do Kwon is not the right person to fight this fight, right? I think SEC has sort of seemingly by default been able to assert that it has jurisdiction over anyone around the world as long as any of their products touched at least one U.S. consumer. Now, should that be the case? Maybe not. Is Do Kwon the person to argue this case? Definitely not. And so I think that until someone else is pressing this argument in court, this one is unlikely to succeed, right? But this is what lawyers do, right? They say, hey, let's submit at least our statement that we want these things to be removed. He's got plenty of other problems to deal with, so this could be sort of the least of his worries. But the fact that the SEC has sort of asserted its ability to rein in any actor the world over, as long as they touch U.S. consumers in some way, shape, or form, as we've seen in some of these statements, some of these complaints, that should be contested, I think. But this is not the guy to do it. Jen, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that you're completely right. If any project has at least one U.S. customer who has lost money or has suffered because of your product, the SEC is going to swoop in and say, you know what, we're here to protect consumers, and U.S. consumers are not in a good place because of your product. I think that Do Kwon is definitely not the person who should be fighting this. I don't think he should be the poster boy for this conversation. I don't think this is going to go very far. I think this is similar to, if SBF were to come out and try to fight the good fight for crypto, your name has already been disgraced. We don't need you leading this conversation. But I think that given Do Kwon's situation, he's going to try and take any win he can. Wendy?
I actually think that this is very interesting, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. Again, I don't think Do Kwon did good things. I think he's kind of a bad actor, but at the same time, when you're talking about the law, and I kind of want to push this back to Jen, the law has different, certain stipulations they have to go by, and just because you're a POS and you're not a good person, you made bad decisions, American law is written in a particular way to protect people. And I do think because the SEC hasn't been able to give clear guidelines as what is a security and what isn't, they kind of just throwing a dart at this point. This might be a good argument for him, even though he is a bad actor. But Jen, can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that maybe? I don't know. That was just the thought that came to my mind.
Yeah, I can't get it. I don't know enough to get into the inner workings of this. I think that unfortunately we see people be made an example of in the law. And at the end of the day, a lot of the decisions come down to one person's interpretation of what goes on, right? And we have to really rely on the evidence. I think the evidence against Do Kwon is just bad. I can just see him being made an example of. I don't know if he's the right person to lead this fight. I think it might be worse for the industry than better. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting case because we have all been looking for this clarity from the SEC on what is security and what is not. But the SEC is just going by the enforcement action that was pictured very clearly last week, right, with Gary Gensler going to Capitol Hill and testifying from the House Financial Committee there and kind of getting bullied on stage in front of a lot of other Congress people. And there was still no clarity at the end of the day on it. This case in particular is tough because of Do Kwon, just for the same reasons that Wendy and Jen, you just articulated. That being said, it could kind of drag things out a little bit more. I don't see him winning because I think the SEC will just be able to claim that someone was injured somewhere and they're going to have jurisdiction. But it could drag it out just a little bit longer. Zach, up to you.
The SEC is emboldened. It's like hunting season for the SEC, right? You had what was arguably something that had been in the works for a long time with sort of Gary Gensler's stated views on the cryptocurrency sector. And then you had gas tossed onto that fire with the implosion of FTX. And now the SEC is really on the warpath, and a lot of crypto firms are worried about their future here in the U.S. because it seems as though that definition of what's a security, what can be traded, what can be listed, is getting pretty thin. And so a lot of people are worried, I think, in the regulatory conversation about what's next, what's the next shoe to drop. And it's certainly a conversation to look out for. But yeah, Do Kwon, one of those figures in the last 8 or 10 months that has really put a black eye in the crypto space. That is for sure. Wendy, any last thoughts on this one before we change gears?
You know what? I don't. I'm just tired of the SEC. I'm tired of hearing about Gary Gensler. I just want somebody new, young, and fresh to come in. That's all.
Wendy, we're not going to get the new person. I need you to get off of that train.
You know what, Jen? Come on. Let's not. You and me, we don't need to beef. Okay, we gotta unite.